I'm going to take you through one of the games from the Fischer Rapid World Championship Finals taking place in Oslo at the moment. And this game is between Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen. So, the players playing a series of rapid games, slow rapids, then fast rapids and blitz. And that will determine two finalists. I should say that the other semi-finalists between Wesley So and Jan Nippon-Nishi. Let's get on with this game. So the time control is 40 moves in 45 minutes and then 15 minutes the rest of the game. So in the Fischer Rapid, of course, the baseline is shuffled. And, you know, it makes it debatable which is the best first move at all. So Caruana selects, well, f4, not a traditional f4, which opens up the queen's diagonal, and you can see there's a threat to take this one straight away. So I mean, this is already quite a difficult decision for black. You know, do you play the pawn out here to block that, or do you play the knight out to block that? Probably not advisable to play this move, which would allow queen here, trapping a rook. That would be a strange conclusion to the game after just two moves. Carlsen goes with b6, which does look very strange considering that this knight has no legal moves. But there is also a good reason for playing this move, and that's to bring this bishop into play on one of these squares. f5, well, you know, that's a very interesting move again. You know, should you be developing pieces, or Caruana decides to gain space and, you know, perhaps gives his rook more room. The pawn is supported by the rook after all. And game one between these players, they play with the same position, then switch colours. Game one, so Caruana with black went bishop b7 in this position. And so it's interesting that both Carlsen and Caruana thought it was a good idea to gain space like this. But in fact, Caruana, to my eyes, got quite a pleasant position. You can see he's castled quickly. The king looks safe. The only problem is this knight in the corner. And, well, the other knight now comes out here from this corner. This knight's still struggling, but, you know, it can come out after one of these pawns moves. But here it looks to me as though Caruana was actually set up pretty nicely with, you know, two pawns in the middle here. I mean, the game was fluctuated, but at the moment I think Caruana with black was doing pretty well. Only problem was that knight. Anyway, let's go back. So it's really unclear what strategy you should play, which is very, very intriguing. f6 played in this one by Carlsen. So white has the same problem that black just encountered. What to do about this? Now, instead of playing b3, Caruana played knight b3. And this might actually be questionable. I mean, it looks extraordinary. You'd think that just developing a knight to block the queen's attack of the pawn looks very normal. But actually, after this move c5, Carlsen starts to gain greater control of the centre. You'll notice that Caruana can't follow up with c4. Of course, that could be taken. So he plays d3. And then Carlsen played d5, so you can see he's claiming the centre. So at least some rules follow. Some rules are the same in the opening. You know, the centre is still very important. And after this move, well, of course, black has a wonderful centre. White should take that en passant. But it is quite clear that Carlsen, after just 6 moves, has the upper hand in this one. It's interesting that in both these games, both players of the black pieces somehow managed to get greater central control than their opponents. Very strange. So here, white has to think what to do with the king. Well, both sides have to think how they're going to deal with that. So Caruana plays this, and Carlsen castled, and Caruana followed suit. So now we're approaching something that looks like a normal chess position, where black simply has a nice pawn center. White is rather restricted behind the first three ranks. Actually, it looks like this could come from a Dutch defense, actually, very easily, where, well, Dutch defense reversed, if you see what I mean. If you can imagine a pawn here and a break with the e-pawn. So, yeah, a typical pawn formation from that opening. But there are a few problems for both sides. How does black develop the knights? How does white develop the bishops? So knight g6 is very understandable in that sense. And e4 is also a very understandable move here, because if white doesn't break out, then white just has no space. And if d4, which if the pawns remain static, could be very pleasant, considering that black has nice control over this square. But then white attacks the centre with c3, and once this is broken down, then white should be fine there. So after this last move, pawn to e4, Carlsen decided to exchange. Of course, white shouldn't contemplate recapturing the pawn, which would just leave an isolated pawn, so therefore knight takes e4. But it still means that black has greater control of the centre just because of this pawn here. Now, got to solve the problem with the knight, so this one hops out. Bishop h5, well, Caruana is trying to clear his ranks. Queen d5 is a nice move. That queen was treading on the toes of these pieces. Attacks the bishop, which came back. And now queen d7. So the queen is on a safe square. And it's made room for the knight to come to e6. And this is a beautiful square. It looks at these important squares and so secures black's centre. At the moment, white can't contemplate breaking with d4, for example. And the bishop finally emerges onto this beautiful diagonal, and that is absolutely key. And again, there's no doubt in my mind that black has the better position here. It's not just about greater control of the centre, but also look at the king positions. Look at the 3 pawns in front of black's king and only 2 pawns in front of white's, and that bishop looks really menacing. Okay, time to develop. Bishop d2 and bishop b7 is an obvious move to get rid of that strong piece. And that was exchanged. So there's a slight problem with the rook here. That just needs to reconnect, but it doesn't take long. And in the meantime, actually, Caruana can't achieve much. So once again, really important that d4 is being prevented. And what does white do now? Well, rook e4 is an attempt by Caruana to maybe double rooks, secure some squares along the 4th rank. But Carlsen reacts really well. This is the kind of move that Caruana, given more time, wouldn't be playing, because he'd obviously overlooked that f5 was simply possible in this position, and this is really well spotted by Carlsen. So now he doesn't just have a kind of abstract advantage. Now it's more tangible. Now he has the initiative. So if knight takes pawn, then the knight comes in. You can see this knight is threatened. This knight looks really dangerous. If that's taken, then rook takes, and now this pin is actually fatal. So black doesn't take yet, but just keeps piling up, and well, very soon we're going to be able to take recapture with the knight, and then the king is just in terrible trouble. It might be possible to end up with the bishop on that square as well, depending on how white reacts in this position. You can see that knight is way out of the game. Just, it doesn't play a part in the game at all. And actually, that's a consequence of the move of the third move, knight b3. It's funny, isn't it, how it kind of persists. I think that's the interesting thing about Fischer random, that Caruana actually got a poor position quite quickly and wasn't able to, and it's very hard to determine that, and somehow hasn't been able to dig himself out of problems. So let's see what happened. f5, the rook just had to come back, and so Carlsen gains time, the rook comes over. It's possible actually to push straight on with f4 and f3, but knight f4, I think that's typical Carlsen move. You know, that knight on e6 feels slightly oddly placed when it's in the line of the rook, so he just gets it out of the way first and prepares to put it back here. I mean, the bishop d2 preempts the knight coming into d5. And here black is really ready to advance that one down the board. So let's see, c4. So Caruana trying to fight back. Now, once c4 is played, then the d pawn is backwards. So, you know, he has to push on. But actually, it doesn't help. Of course, Carlsen is not going to take, which would, you know, bring the queen and the knight into play. Instead, he starts the push. And f3 reminds me very much of Carlsen's games with the Sveshnikov, actually, with black, where, you know, he was pushing forward with his e and principally with his f pawn as well. If you think back to his game, for example, against Peter Svidler, which I covered on the channel, this is absolutely typical. You know, where you have this pawn majority on the king side, you use it to just open up the enemy king. So if g3, trying to keep things closed, well, we can take here, and very soon there could be something on this diagonal, you know, a bishop coming here, or maybe a knight hopping in here. So one of these squares, it's really, really dangerous. And of course that queen can't move, the queen on f2 can't move. So g takes f3. But now it's, well, you can see all these squares are available for black's pieces, and it is actually pretty painful what happens. Caruana is just really struggling here. So this pawn is targeted, and there we go. That is really nasty. If the king moves to h1, we can just play rook f3 and keep slamming on. All black's pieces are involved in the attack. And that is a total killer. Cutting through to the king. Rook obviously can't move because of the discovered attack, so the knight comes back to defend the rook. But knight g5 is a very nice move, exploiting the pins here and here to win this rook in the middle of the board, and that really is game over. This, well, Fabi just going through the motions now, and shortly he resigned. That was the final move of the game. Yeah, he's just still being taken apart, and the exchange down. So a really convincing victory for Magnus there. The other game, it was pretty unclear, fluctuating struggle. Both sides had chances, but that one was very clear indeed. So they go into the faster rapids and blitz games of the semi-final following this. But Carlsen has the lead at the moment. In the other semi, Wesley So has a clear lead over Jan Nepomniachtchi. So could be a Carlsen So final, but let's see what happens. Thanks for watching.